Hey, what's up? This is Scott with Level Up Tutorials, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you 8 tips that make you a better React developer. Now, these are things from tooling to actual code style, stuff like that you can implement right now and make yourself a better React developer pretty much instantly. So let's get going right now. So what I want to do in this video here is really go over 8 things that can make you a better React developer. Now, the point of this video isn't necessarily that these are the only 8 things. In fact, if you have other things, I would suggest putting them in the comments and letting everyone know, here's your tips, your personal tips or ideas on what you can do to become a better React developer. However, these things are just things that I've felt like over time in developing things that I've just noticed that are nice to really understand well and will make the biggest impact in writing excellent code for yourself. So one thing I wanted to talk about first is linting. And so if we head to my text editor, one thing that's really important is good linting. And this one will go maybe the furthest in terms of writing excellent React. Because if we have a good set of linting rules set up, and I'm going to give you exactly what I use in a minute here. If we have a good set of linting rules set up, your text editor is going to catch anything that could potentially have a problem, right? And that could save you some headaches. But more than just catching problems, your ESLint setup is going to be constantly making you aware of React best practices. It's going to say, hey, don't do this, don't do that, do this instead. For instance, if we wanted to reference a new property that it could be passed in here, console.log, and no, don't make a new element, and we were to say this dot props.hello. Okay, this prop doesn't exist. But what you can see is my linter immediately gives me an underline and lets me know that, hey, it's missing prop validation. And this is coming in from the React prop types rule here. So this is definitely something that is going to constantly make you aware of these best practices left and right. And what it's going to do is just really shape your understanding of the code, because obviously once you hit a mistake once or twice here, you're going to start to avoid those mistakes when you write your code overall. In turn, just making you understand more about what it is to write excellent React code. So my advice for you is to set up one, ESLint. If you actually purchase the React 16 for Everyone course, I have a whole video on setting up linting and talking a little bit about configuring it and stuff like that. So if you want to get your React lint set up, open up that video and I'll show you a little bit more. However, what you're going to want is ESLint, and you're going to typically, or at least I really like, is this Airbnb JavaScript style guide. You'll see this used quite frequently, and this is more than just React. This is going to be more just JavaScript stuff, but it's going to solve a ton of your React issues as well, because at the end of the day, writing React code is mostly just writing straight up JavaScript anyways. And you're also going to want to use the React ESLint package, which I believe is just under the name React. So you'll want to go ahead and make sure you have the ESLint React package as well as Airbnb set up in your ESLint. If you do this ESLint config when you get started with it, I believe it asks you if you are using a popular library or framework, and you can just go ahead and say, yeah, I'm using React and Airbnb. So ESLint, major thing to get set up and teaches you to write excellent React code. Now, next we have something that I mentioned just a minute ago in this video when my linter acted up, is be able to use prop types and default props. Some of the rules that are set up in this by default is if your prop type is not required, then it needs a default prop. So like, let's say user is loaded is no longer required. What we would need to do is have a static default props is equal to, then we could have user is loaded, and this actually should be false, obviously. Okay, so now you can see that error has gone away. So basically what we want is anytime we have a prop type that's used in our component, we need to set a prop type for it, as in user is loaded is always going to be a Boolean. And again, if this is not required, then we're going to need to have a default prop. If it is required, you don't want or need a default prop. However, the rule will also state that you shouldn't have ambiguous prop types like object or array. So in this case, we're using shape, and we're saying the user ID is a prop types of string, and the entire user object is required. So making sure you have your prop types and default props set up on every single component that uses props will go a long ways, because the moment those props aren't getting that information that they're expecting to have, your error log is going to let you know that you're either passing this in something incorrectly or something that is expecting is not there. And that makes error finding just way easier, especially if you're writing a lot of reusable components. It also makes them a little bit more self-documenting here. Okay, next we have know when to make new components. This is the user profile component, and I could have brought in some of these things like my orders or my downloads. This could have been all in line here because I'm really just pulling the data information from the same spot, and these could have all just been this one giant massive component. And maybe I'm not reusing my orders anywhere else. And maybe I want to be able to use it somewhere else, but maybe I'm not, you know. But at the end of the day here, my orders is its own little encapsulated thing, right? This thing basically is its own thing. And when something is its own thing, it's a good time to make it into its own component. So while there aren't any hard and fast rules on when to make a component, just staring at this screen right now, I invite you to try to figure out what these components might be. For instance, we have the orders component, the subscription component, the my votes component, we have the user photo, user menu component up here, we have the header component overall, we have the main navigation. You can see here that these things are these nested components, right? So anytime anything's functionality becomes unwieldy, or it represents its own thing, or it's something that you're going to reuse, you're going to want to move it into its own component. So the easiest one, I guess, of those is to determine if you're going to reuse something, it should probably be its own component, right? That way you don't have to type it again. It makes your code dry so that it doesn't repeat itself, and it will make things easier to update and debug. So that one is the easiest. Some of the other ones, I guess, visually you could look at something and see when it's fully encapsulated and just sort of see what its own thing is. These things are a little bit more up to your own judgment, but the last thing anyone wants to see is a giant, 200-line component that has all these crazy bells and whistles, and it might be definitely much easier to read when I can see, oh, here's my orders, my downloads, my subscriptions, my votes, that sort of stuff. You can see this component is instantly readable. Okay, next we have know the difference between component versus pure component versus a stateless functional component, and when you're going to want to use them. You'll notice that this component up top, pure component. But what's up with pure component versus a stateless functional component versus a normal component? Well, let's actually check out another component like a stateless functional. I can open a billboard, and here we have a stateless functional component. Now, this is going to be maybe one of the most common types of components in your arsenal. Now, again, in the React 16 for Everyone series, I have a video teaching you all about these. But the idea with a stateless functional component is, well, it's stateless and it's just a function. So what's nice about these is you're defining it just as a constant function. It's equal to an arrow function, and this one is simply just returning some stuff. It doesn't have state, it doesn't have refs, it doesn't have any lifecycle methods, none of that stuff. None of that extra stuff, right? And the React team has promised performance benefits in the future from these. And not only that, but this thing is super simple, right? You could take this anywhere as long as you're using JSX in a project, whether that's Preact or whatever. And this thing is going to work because it's just a function that's returning JSX. So if your components aren't using those elements, that's state and refs and that sort of stuff, then you're going to want to almost always use a stateless functional component. These things should be super common within your project, and as you can see, they're really nice and concise. This thing is just presentational, nothing crazy. And if you're wondering about pure component versus a normal component, well, a pure component doesn't do deep checking, right? When a component gets new props into it, it usually re-renders, right? It'll trigger a re-render, but sometimes it's getting new props and those props haven't really changed and it's triggering a re-render. And what a pure component does is it doesn't do this deep checking of an object. Like, for instance, if a prop is a string or a boolean and it changes, a pure component is going to recognize that. But if a property within an object is changing in a pure component, it's not going to trigger a re-render. So there's a really excellent React package, I believe it's called Why Did You Update? And this is kind of a micro optimization, right? But it can potentially help you understand where there are maybe unnecessary re-renders in your content. And then you could use a pure component rather than a component to prevent things from having an unnecessary re-render. Like I said, this is a great tool if you're going to start diagnosing issues, but if you're just fixing something that isn't broken, it could be, again, like a micro optimization or a premature optimization. But again, you'll want to know when you can use a pure component and when you should be using a regular component. Again, a pure component can help you potentially save some unnecessary re-renders by not doing deep checking. Okay, so use and know the difference between component, pure component, and stateless functional component. Okay, next we have one that should be commonplace by now, but it's use React dev tools. If you're using React, chances are you've been yelled at by your console to use React dev tools. It exists for the major platforms, so go and grab the extension. You can see here it gives you access to, well, a DOM-like structure for your entire React. It allows you to see inside, see all these props. It allows us to do things like $R in our console here to go ahead and load up the current component and see all of the nice stuff in here. So as you can see here, this is just a really excellent way to explore your React components and help diagnose issues. Is this component not getting the right props? Well, why isn't it getting these props? Where do they stop? Where does it end? So this is an excellent tool that you're going to need in your tool belt and will help you work in React. Okay, number 6, I believe this is. And this one might, I don't know, I don't want to say this is going to ruffle some feathers. In my opinion, using inline conditional statements is going to be something that cleans up your React code considerably. Take in mind, look at this. I have a basic function, is this person an affiliate? Next, I have double ampersands, and then my thing here, my component. So basically, what's so nice about this is that I didn't have to write a function up top here. I didn't have to have an if statement in my render thing. I didn't have to have, basically a link to somewhere else in this component, right? It wasn't like a variable here and you see this variable and go and say, okay, where is that defined? It's defined up here in an if statement. Okay. What it does is it puts your conditional directly in line. And so how you can use these is simply by using this double ampersand. So inside of our brackets, you would have a if statement. Essentially, it could be anything, right? It could just say true, and this will always show my affiliate info box, right? But this is a function that evaluates to true or false, and then it goes ahead and if it exists or if it's true, with this double ampersand has our component. Now, what's nice about this is you can also use ternary operators, so we could also say colon here, and you might want to use parentheses to make this a little bit more readable. So we could say if they are an affiliate, show the affiliate box, otherwise so show some other stuff, right? And this makes some nice little error things fine, right? You could have your if it works, show this, otherwise show something else. So again, some people might not like this. They might say, hey, it's cluttering up the JSX. In my opinion, this syntax right here, when it gets back with the ampersand. This syntax right here is infinitely more readable than a variable that's defined up over here and then you have to use it down here, right? This keeps everything nice. Now, granted, if it's a giant, big old conditional monster, I could see it being an issue. However, I don't feel that this is an issue. I actually really like this syntax. Seems super readable. Next is use snippet libraries whenever possible. Let's go ahead and create a new file. I can just say this as test.js. I'm going to delete this after this video, but you can see I have to type in RC, and then you could see RCC, RCP for a pure component, I believe. This was with prop types. You can see I have some different snippets here. And if I hit enter, you can see it's set me up to just say hello, right? And what's so great about these snippets is that not only do they help you potentially save bugs, but they help you identify the latest and greatest syntaxes. So the snippet library I use for VS Code is React. Let me see. I use ES7 React Redux React Native snippets. And this includes a whole bunch of insanely excellent snippets, and it shows you all of them here. And like I said, it uses the latest and greatest syntax with like static prop types and stuff like that. It imports everything for you, and it will make working in React a breeze because you don't have to potentially type and have a bug somewhere anywhere in here. Okay. So again, use snippet libraries. Like I said, the one I use, ES7 React Redux React Native JS snippets. It's a long name, but super duper useful. There's a lot of snippet libraries. Go check out some popular ones and see if there's any that are looking good to you. Okay, so that was number 7, and now we're on to number 8. Number 8 is something that, well, you don't necessarily have to do, but it's going to make you a better React developer. This is learn the internals of React. And I found this great post by Matt Greer at mattgreer.org. I can share this in the video description. And again, if you have another post for this that you think is excellent or better or whatever, feel free to share. I like this one. It talks a little bit about building your own sort of light version of React and stuff like that, but it goes really in depth into the different areas of React and sort of how it works. And the reason why this could be important is if you were having issues with something that you might not have understand fully. If you understand how React works itself, you're going to understand when and how to do things, right? I have this idea, but I don't quite know where to execute it in React. Well, if you know exactly what React's doing at any given point, you're always going to know where to put your code. So understanding the basics of how React works will make you a better React developer, absolutely. So to go over again, get some good linting set up. ESLint, Airbnb, React linting, okay? Number 2, use prop types and default props. Never let your component have a prop type that's not required, not have a default prop. Okay. Number 3 is know when to make new components. Okay. Number 4 is component versus pure component versus stateless functional components. Know if it's affecting your performance by unnecessary re-renders or if you could be using a stateless functional. Again, linting is going to help with this. If we have a component like this and we're not using anything, you'll notice I have this big old red underline. It's going to say this should be written as a pure function. Prefer React stateless function. Okay, so as you can see here, again, linting is going to help you immensely. Okay, next, use React dev tools. You got to use them. They make your life better constantly. Number 3, use conditionals and inline ternary statements because honestly, it makes your code more readable, unless it's like a monstrous giant conditional statement. Okay, and 7, we have use snippet libraries. They save you a ton of time when creating new components or even adding things like component did mount and stuff like that. Who wants to type all that stuff out, potentially having bugs and missing things? Basically, they inform you of excellent React syntax so that you can use it without having to type it yourself. And lastly, number 8, learn how React works. Now, you don't have to learn the nitty-gritty of everything, but having an understanding about how React works will definitely make you a better React developer. Okay, so I hope these 8 tips helped you a lot. These are things that I've noticed have improved my code quality considerably. And if you want more and more React goodness from Level Up Tutorials, head to leveluptutorials.com/store and check out React 16 for Everyone, where I teach you a lot about this stuff, right? A lot of the stuff I mentioned here is present in this series. We do excellent modern React in this series, or you can become a subscriber at leveluptutorials.com/pro, and you get access to the streaming and download with that as well. So either become a pro to subscribe or head over to the store and purchase it outright. Either way, you can learn excellent modern React, and we make some really cool stuff in this series using APIs and excellent modern JavaScript. So thank you so much for watching. As always, this is Scott, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.